Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we're going to make a delicious ragu, a pork and sausage ragu. And the first thing we want to do is brown our pork. So this is a pork shoulder. It's about 3 pounds. And the first thing you want to do, you need to season your pork really well with kosher salt. And as you know, I use diamond kosher salt and black pepper. And if you notice, I have it lined with paper towel. It is really, really important to make sure that your meat is nice and dry before you go ahead and put it in your hot pan so that it's going to caramelize and sear nicely. So I have my pork in front of me here. And what you want to do is grab hold of a good amount of salt, kosher salt, and you want to shower it. You want to make sure, this is really important because you'll never be able to get that seasoning correct if you don't season your meat properly. We also want to season it with some black pepper. So I will give it a good douse of black pepper. I actually have 2 pots going just to save time for our video here. But you can certainly just use 1 pot. I have 1 pot behind me heating up right back here. I'm going to turn it up now. And you want it on like medium-high heat is what you're looking to sear it. And just watch it carefully. This should take about 10 minutes to sear. Sear the outside of the meat to get a very nice caramelization, nice color. And then in the meantime, we can use this pot to start our sauce. Let's see. That sounds great. So you just want to watch it every once in a while. You don't want to move it right now. At this point, you really want to get that nice crust. So just be patient and wait a little bit. Now I do have some nice olive oil that I'm going to use to saute our vegetables here. What I have here is 1 sweet onion that I have diced. I have 3 cups of diced tomatoes. Why don't we start with our sweet onion? This is nice and hot. Let's get our onion in, give that a stir. You want to cook your onion for about, let's make sure we have the right. You want to cook the onion for about 5 minutes. And in the meantime, we can talk about the garlic I have here. I have 4 cloves of garlic, and I have already thinly sliced the garlic. And if you want, at this point, you can mince it. You can get it very, very fine if you prefer to have it in your sauce that way. So let's just go ahead and take our sliced garlic and just get it minced. Let me see how this is doing. And I'll take a look at the meat. It's not quite ready. What's really nice about this ragu is that you can make it ahead of time. You can make this up to 3 days in advance. I have my garlic nicely chopped here. In another minute or so, I will go ahead and add our garlic. Let me check the pork. Oh, that looks lovely. So I'm going to turn it now. Okay, I just turned the pork. And by the way, we're going to put this in the oven, a low oven, and let this cook very slowly. I have my oven set at 275 degrees. After 30 minutes, you want to go in and check and see how it's doing. And if it's very softly cooking, then you're right at the right temperature. If it's not doing anything, you might need to raise it. Or if it's boiling a little too hard, you may need to lower it. So start it at 275 and then you can gauge where you need to go with your oven. I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. We're going to add a cup of red wine. You can also use white wine if you prefer. Once you can smell the garlic, you're ready to go. It doesn't take very long. I have a nice dry red wine that I'm going to use, 1 cup, and I'm going to add it to the onions and the garlic, and I'll let it reduce for a couple of minutes. You want to just draw out the alcohol before you go ahead and add your tomatoes, and we're also going to add a little bit of stock and some fresh herbs. So this looks great. Now what I'm doing in the second, if you had wanted to just use 1 pot, you would first brown your meat, take it out, put it on a plate, and then go ahead to this step. I'm just trying to save some time. So that's why I'm using 2 pots. We also have 2 cups of stock here, and this is unsalted. So be sure if you're going to buy purchased stock, definitely get at least either unsalted or low salt, and then you can add your own salt because this is going to cook for a long time. The sauce will reduce, and if there's too much salt in your stock, it'll make your sauce too salty. So be careful with that. So here's our 2 cups of stock. I have my tomatoes. I'm going to use 2 of my favorite herbs. I'm going to use some fresh thyme, which I absolutely love, and also some rosemary, which I think goes very well with pork. I'm going to do about, I would say, let's go with about a tablespoon of fresh. And if you were to use dried herbs, then it would be about a teaspoon, okay? So let's chop this up just a little bit. I think this might be enough. I'll do the same amount. I'll do about a tablespoon of fresh rosemary and about a tablespoon of fresh thyme. We have 2 dried bay leaves that I'm going to add to my red wine. I'm going to raise the heat a little bit. Rosemary smells so good. It has a wonderful, wonderful flavor. And then let's also put in some fresh thyme. Oh, that smells wonderful. I think the wine is cooked off enough. So now we can go ahead and add our 3 cups of diced San Marzano tomatoes. Now, tomato obviously needs salt. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of salt here. And let that come to a boil. In the meantime, I will check the pork. See how it's doing. I'm sure it's ready to be turned. Oh, that looks great. I'm going to add all of our herbs, the thyme and the rosemary. Once we have this all done and in the oven, we're also going to make a wonderful topping for the ragu. Okay, this is cooking pretty nicely. And it's really all starting to come together. So now I will go ahead and put in my 2 cups of stock. I also mentioned that this was a pork and sausage, which is also pork, ragu. So I have a ½ pound. You can either use hot sausage or sweet mild sausage. This is a sweet sausage. And I'm just going to go in and remove the casing, and we're just going to break this up, and it's just going to melt into the sauce and give a wonderful flavor. Let me just take a look at our pork. Oh, that looks wonderful. That's caramelized beautifully. So I just turned it on its last side. and then I will show you the meat. So what we're going to do here, you're just going to break up the sausage in just tiny little pieces. Now let's just give it a stir and mix it right into the sauce. It smells delicious. Let's see how it's doing. Oh, lovely. Okay, I'm going to come around and show you how beautiful we have really caramelized the meat beautifully. We took our time. It probably did take about 10 minutes or so. So I think you can see that it looks great. So let's get this in the pot. So the sauce is covering the meat about 3/4 of the way. And I will check it in 30 minutes to see how it is doing, whether I need to raise it or lower it. And after 1 hour, this can take up to 4 hours depending on how thick your meat is. This is pretty thick, so I think this is going to take a good 3 to 4 hours. We shall see. So I will check it every hour until it's done, and then we'll come back, we'll shred it and put it in our sauce. Okay, and get this in the oven, and then we'll make our delicious ricotta topping. Okay, so I have all of my ingredients ready to make our ricotta cheese topping. And in this bowl, I have 1 cup of fresh ricotta cheese. And to it, we're going to add 1 clove of garlic. So just remove the skin. And you want this very, very finely minced. So this is a good time if you do have a garlic press. This is actually a good time to use it because you really want this very, very, very finely minced. So I'm going to put it here on my board because I'm going to mix just a touch of kosher salt. And you just want to mix that in. Basically, what you're doing at this point is making a paste. And then you will take this garlic paste and add it to the ricotta cheese. So let's put that in. And of course, we definitely want a little bit of black pepper. Let's add 2 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And we'll start with 2 tablespoons of heavy cream just to make sure we have the right consistency. If it's not quite right, we can add a touch more. Let's put in a pinch of salt. And of course, we want some herbs in here. So parsley, and if you happen to have some fresh basil coming out of your garden, basil would be delicious in here. I'm just going to add parsley today. So about a tablespoon of parsley. And that looks like about a nice tablespoon there. Just give this a little stir and see how the consistency is. I think it could use a touch more cream. It's a little bit too tight. So we'll add 1 more tablespoon. So that's 3 tablespoons total that I used here. Oh, that's nice. That has a good consistency now. I'm going to put in just a little touch of nutmeg. I like that. Now let's give that a taste. It's wonderful. Just a tiny bit more salt and maybe just a touch more black pepper. So when our sauce is done and the meat's all shredded, I will add 1 cup of fresh green peas. If you can't get fresh peas, it's not quite the season yet, you can certainly use frozen sweet peas, defrost them, and then add it to your ragu. I also generally will chop some fresh parsley and add it to the ragu. But if you want to take it to another level, you can make a gremolata, which will actually even make it a little brighter. You know, since the sauce is rich, the zest of the fruit actually really brightens it up. So you can either use 1/4 cup of freshly chopped parsley and fold it into your ragu at the end, or you can make this gremolata. So let's do it. All right, so you need about 1/4 cup of freshly chopped parsley. And let's just talk about the other 3 ingredients to add to the parsley. And that is the zest of a lemon. So we will just put the zest right into the bowl, and the zest of a 1/2 an orange. And now let's do about a 1/2 an orange here. And of course, you just want to get the zest. You don't want to get the pith, which is underneath. A good amount. There's our orange. And we need a clove of garlic, also finely minced. Pass the garlic right through and add it to the orange and lemon zest. And now all we have left to do is just add our parsley once we chop it. Okay, so that looks like about 1/4 cup to me. And it's nicely chopped so you can see it. And there you go. Now we can put in our parsley and set this in the fridge. And we have all of our components ready for our ragu. Okay, we can go ahead and transfer it to a smaller dish. And then you can see our beautiful gremolata. I know I use the word beautiful a lot, but that's what I think of, and it's the word I like to use when it comes to food. It's all so beautiful. Okay, so we'll get this all wrapped up and put away. Now you have time to get your kitchen cleaned up. That is doing its job. You can sit down, maybe go sit outside and read a book, which is what I plan to do for a couple of hours. And I think that's about it. So once it comes out of the oven, we will work on finishing up the ragu, which will just take minutes to do. It'll be all set. Okay, our pork is ready. I just took it out of the oven. It took at 275. It stayed at 275 the entire time. It took a solid 4 hours for it to get nice and tender. I think it's because the pork shoulder was quite thick. So you need to wait until you can put your fork all the way through and it's completely tender. So this is all set. Another thing I do want to mention to you, let me just grab another towel here. I'm just going to pick this up. I just want you to see that I noticed I had to change out the pots during the cooking. I noticed that when I had it in this pot, the cover wasn't sealed tightly. It was very loose and I couldn't get it to seal properly. It is very important that you do have a cover that is going to seal very tightly. So just so you know, that's the reason why it is now in this pot. Okay. Also, another thing to keep in mind when you take it out, there might be some fat right at the very top. And if you're going to eat it right away, you just want to use a spoon and skim off any of the excess fat. If you're not going to eat this today, you can actually let it cool, put it in the refrigerator, and then the fat would solidify, and then you can take the fat off that way, which is really easy to do. And I also have the pasta on the stove cooking, so hopefully it'll all come together at the same time. So I'm going to pull out the pork. Okay, here we go. Put it on this tray here. Here's a little piece that fell off. And just find your bay leaves. I have 2 of them in here. So make sure that you get them out of the sauce as well. Here's our other bay leaf. So we got that out. And now what you want to do is pull apart the meat. It's quite hot right now, but I think we can still get a good amount of it pulled apart. So just use a couple of forks. I just have 2 forks here, and you just, hopefully you can see this. I'll turn it around so that you can see it. Look how nice and tender that is. And you can see how it just falls apart very, very nicely. Can you see that? Okay. And if you see any pieces of fat anywhere and you want to get rid of it, by all means do. This is a nice, I think this might have been a little bit more than 3 pounds here. This looks beautiful, and there's a lot of meat here. Oh, looks delicious. Oh my goodness. Fabulous. I'll come over and show you this beautiful meat. Okay, it's all pulled apart and ready to go into our sauce. Let's put in some meat, and also let's not forget our peas. Let's throw our peas in there and then put in our meat. And you want to add as much meat as you think the sauce can handle. There might be more meat here than we need, which is fine. We can make sandwiches, caramelize some onions and make some sandwiches. This would be delicious with caramelized onions, a little bit of melted fontina cheese on a nice baguette. That would be delicious. Okay. I think that looks perfect. It has a nice consistency. It looks great. A little bit of broth. That piece of meat right there. Okay, then you want to take a little bit of your parsley and lemon zest and orange zest right over the top. And then we'll finish it with our ricotta cheese. So what's really nice when you can make this early in the day, the oven does all the work and you can just enjoy your day. And this is all there is that's left to finishing it up. So I just have 2 tablespoons here. And you can also just put this at the table and let people help themselves. Just put a little pinch on top. And let's come around so that you can see the finished dish. That looks wonderful. So thanks very much, everyone. Bon appetit. Have a great night. Hope to see you again soon. Bye now.